How y'all doing? Anybody else go snowboarding? Come on, raises of hands. Really? We don't got that many? All right, here we go. All right, we got to figure this out here. Hey, so I went to Hume Lake last year when I was a student, and you too should go. And there's one reason you should go to Hume, and you'll all sign up. So once you hear it, 24-hour-a-day Fruity Pebbles. Well, I think it's not really 24-hour a day, but pretty much any waking moment, Fruity Pebbles are available to you with really cold, good milk. So enjoy. Go for that. So like you said, my name's Scott. This is our church, Pathfinder Church. We are a brand new church in Reno. We've not even been having weekly services a year yet. So brand new, really small, just getting off the ground. It's the fun part of church. It's also the scariest part of church life because you could die next week, you know. Not really, but, you know. You just kind of, you're out there, you know. You've jumped off the cliff and you hope there's a parachute. So, but it's great. Here's kind of a picture of my family. That's me and my wife, Penny. She couldn't be here tonight. And then that's you probably know these folks maybe. Matt and Ellie. That's my daughter, Ellie, who married Matt. He's my son. And this is my son, Luke, who kind of resembles Jesse Blair a little bit, right? Just a little bit. When I see them from behind sometimes, if they're in the same space, I'm like, okay, I think I might go hug Jesse someday. So, and then that's his wife, Becky, and both these ladies are pregnant. I'm going to be a twice over grandpa come this spring. So, and I'm only 50. You know, that's pretty cool. Yeah, my wife's only 47, so we're going to be young grandparents and, you know, by the grace of God. So we're really excited about that. Here's a picture of our church where we meet at a hotel, people coming in. You know, there's our, I just wanted you to see it. We have it right in the middle of South Midtown part of Reno. So in order to kind of kick off our talk, you know, you guys have been talking a lot about evangelism and discipleship and just kind of, you know, I want to really kind of, well, I'll get to it in a moment, but I want to start off with a little story about this guy named Jim Elliot and his 4 other friends. They were missionaries back in the 50s and they made contact with their Piper PA-14 airplane. You know, some people, what type of airplane it is and is important to them. So it was a Piper PA-14, just in case that matters to you. So, with the Huaorani people, South America. And these people had never been touched by Christianity, by the gospel of Jesus Christ. And they made contact with them using a loudspeaker and a basket that they loaded down gifts. And they even had some really good encounters. And you know, even after several months, they actually ran into some of them and they actually gave this guy a ride in their airplane, which must have been amazing for him, you know, to go up in their airplane. And they thought, wow, we've had some really good encounters. Let's go ahead and plan a trip to their village. And before they could get there, 10 Huaorani warriors showed up at their site and killed them. All 4 of them. And a question I always have is, what perspectives and values must those 5 men have had to live out the sort of decision to not only go to a random place and try to find these people in order to share the gospel, but here's kind of the hitch. These guys were trained soldiers. These guys decided on purpose to not take guns and defend themselves. And I always think about that. I'm like, wow. And, you know, you've probably heard, some of you may have heard the story of Jim Elliot, but I always think, wow, that's so foreign to me. To try to reach a people for Christ and not try to defend yourself, to go ahead and just die trying, when they could have easily defended themselves. They had the capability and even probably the manpower and the gun power to fight off these people. You know, there's also, back during the, Bloody Mary, you know, in Queen of England, when there was a lot of dissension going on between the Church of England and the Baptists and all this, there was a couple of men who were burnt at the stake for sharing the gospel and baptizing people. One of them was Roland Taylor. And when he was burned at the stake, he actually kissed the stake he was burnt on. He leaned over and kissed it. And then this other guy, John Bradford, also burned at the stake. As he's being taken to the stake where he's going to be burned, his kids are running alongside, encouraging him. I don't know what they said, but I imagine, can you imagine this? Your father is being drugged to his death for the gospel, and you're running alongside saying, way to go, Dad. You're doing the right thing. Show him who God is. Can you imagine the perspective and values they must have to do something like that? I can't. I get glimpses of it, but I don't have it to that degree. And so here's what happens, I think, with us all. And I know there's a mixture of different people in the room here. Some of you have been walking with God for years. Some of you maybe have just discovered God and you've already made a decision to be what the Bible calls a Christian, and you're starting your discipleship maturing process. The seeds of faith are starting to sprout and grow in you. And some of you are here and you're exploring it for the first time and you're still not quite sure. I think you maybe have received the seeds of faith, but you're still waiting. Should I put some water on those? You're still or you have the seeds in your hand and you're like, should I plant these? And that's everybody's welcome here. I'm going to talk to everybody here tonight. One of the things we have at our church, we call it space to investigate. I want every person to feel free to come in and investigate the God of the Bible at their own pace, no matter what's going on in their lives, and just figure out if they think he's real, if he's good, and how they're going to respond to him. So you're all welcome here. But here's, I think, what happens to people is we're born into this world. Here's a quick synopsis of the Bible, by the way, here in 1 minute, maybe. God created us in his image. We're to be the image of the creator God, the best being that was ever what? He's good, he's all powerful, everything's below him, nothing's above him. He upholds every subatomic particle in any given nanosecond in the entire universe and the multiverse. You're supposed to laugh at the multiverse part. And so and yet he created us to be like mini hymns in a way. To live like he did, to think like he did, to do what he did, to be under his creator, to kind of follow his example, to bear witness to who he is. And we rejected that. We said, basically, screw you, God. I'll be my own God. Thank you very much. I'm not going to try to follow your ways. I want to be equal to you or my own God. Now, that's madness in the realm of how reality works according to the Bible. It's madness. That's like the earth telling the sun, no, thank you. We're going to go off to another solar system and in 30 feet of moving, we freeze and die, I don't know if it'd be 30 feet. If there's some astrophysics here, you can just ignore that. But it's madness. And then we're cut off from this image bearer. Or we're the image bearer. We're cut off from him. And so we kind of suffer. We kind of are wandering the earth looking for who are we supposed to be? What am I supposed to be? We're searching for that new identity. Where is it? Is it under the tree? Is it in my job? Is it in my hobby? I like to snowboard. Is it maybe there? Is it in my sexuality? Where is it? And even when we find something, we're like, this is it. It's cool for a little while. And then it's not enough. But then maybe we discover the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ, and Jesus reunites us. He repairs our image to be the image that we were first born to be, that Adam and Eve were first created to be, and we find it, and there's something inside of us that springs up with joy and peace, and we feel like we're totally in the center of where we ought to be for the first time. We're still struggling. It's still developing in us, but we're there. And then we want to tell everybody about it. But here's the problem. And this is kind of what I want to talk about tonight. Once we discover the goodness of God, we want others to have it, but we struggle to accomplish this. Now, there's a bunch of reasons I want to throw up here of why we struggle to accomplish this. First is, and just kind of look, we'll come back to this at the end, but kind of just start to have your mind start thinking, where are you? Maybe you just don't know how to share the goodness of God in your life. Or maybe I don't want to be rejected. There's something inside of us that doesn't like to be told no, right? I've done a lot of evangelism this last year. I've knocked on a lot of doors. I've started conversations with a lot of people. And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, what if they don't want to talk to me? And I'm like, who cares? That's what my mind's telling me. Like, who cares? I'll be okay. And most of the time they don't talk to me. They just say, hey, I'm good. I'm fine. And then we could just talk about sports or something. And then we're fine. It's an okay conversation. I don't know why I dread the no and the rejection so much. But we do, don't we? We go to ask out a girl, and she says no. It hurts, huh? But really, does it? Anyways, it could, right? I've tried, and I just get poor results. So there's a misunderstanding of, the way's narrow, not wide. So you're just kind of discouraged by the results. Or I don't know. I didn't know I could. Or should, or was even able to. So thanks, Scott, for telling me. Or I just don't know why. I just don't know why. Or maybe you're not quite there yet. So I want to help you accomplish two things tonight. And here's what there is. First of all, I want to help get you going. If this is you, if you're a person who's like, I want to share with people about the goodness that I've discovered in Jesus Christ in a way that's functional. Let me tell you a side point really quick here. If there's anything that church planting at age 49 and 50 has taught me in the last year of people in Reno, Nevada, which is the second most unchurched city in the United States after San Francisco, people are disinterested in evangelicalism from a standard set point. But boy, are they spiritually hungry. So here's what I've realized. This is what convinces, I am convinced of this, guys, as of today. God is at work in people's hearts without anybody helping them. He's doing his own work. He is stirring in the hearts, and he's stirring in your hearts, I bet, tonight, if you don't know him yet. He's stirring. He's revealing himself. He's calling you, showing himself to you. And what I've realized is all I need to do is get into the right space where I can have that safe conversation with the person that God's already working at. Now, it takes strategy and tactics and a little bit of like goodwill and good luck to actually, I shouldn't say good luck, but it feels that way to actually get in that conversation. It's not as easy as just like, is God talking to you yet? Nope. Okay, I'll come back later. Is God talking to you yet? Nope. I mean, it's hard, especially in today's day and age when we're all so like, we have so much like spiritual baggage as a society. We have a lot of spiritual baggage as a society. We're not a very healthy field for harvesting spirituality towards Jesus Christ. Now we are, God's at work, but it's just more challenging here in the States. So I want to help get you going, get you in the right headspace. And then two is, I also want to, for those of you who are still exploring, I want to help you a little bit further in your journey, explore Jesus Christ and salvation. And then also I want to help you identify any barriers you may have at this point. So in order to help us do this, I came up with a word. I like to make up words sometimes. And so I made up a word tonight. And this word encaptures, that's a made up word too. So we'll just ignore that one. I was going to say encapsulates. This word really does kind of like pull together the two main themes that will help get you started in sharing your faith. Now, sharing your faith is a very broad statement. There's a lot of tactics and there's a lot of different ways to do that. And that's not what tonight's talk is about. Tonight isn't a tactics talk. It's a foundational talk. And the word I'm going to use, it's called motivailability. Motivailability, motivation and availability. We have to have the right motivation, but we also have to be available. And available isn't just with our time. It's also our time, but it's also being equipped. It's being ready to go. It's being looking for it. It's being like trained. It's being primed to actually take advantage of an opportunity when it comes your way. All right? Anybody football fans in here? So go Chiefs, right? I know. My wife's a Niners fan. We live in a struggled household. I grew up in Kansas City, so it's hard. I feel like all the Patriot fans felt like a long time ago. And I have to hear everybody tell me how Mahomes cheats and how the refs help him and how they're only 5 plays away from being 50-50 in their winning streak. They finally lost at least, right? Good. Because they'll still win the Super Bowl. But anyways, receivers have to be available to play their role. And there's a lot in a receiver getting available to receive the ball from the quarterback. There's a lot to that. There's a lot of stuff that has to go on for them to get in that position. A lot of training, a lot of different plays, having a team, having linemen, having all kinds of different aspects come together to where they can be able to receive that ball and run it down the field. And oftentimes they don't, right? We see a lot of incomplete passes. See a lot of tackles. Well, tackles aren't too bad. So availability is key. So Motivailability. So here's what I want to do. I was going to play this audio for you, but I decided I'm just going to read to you some excerpts because it was kind of a long audio. And I'm going to kind of start with, because I tried to think through what are the different things that motivate me. So I'm going to tell you currently one of the motivation pieces I have for spreading the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And it really has to do with something that's so archaic. It's not very popular in today's day. And it's the doctrine of hell. I'm sure you've heard of the word hell, right? Hopefully the doctrine's not that foreign. And I just want to set you up for this. I'm going to read some. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I'm going to read some descriptions of some of the biblical principles where Jesus described what hell is. And I'm going to use a writer. It's an article called Hell, That Hideous Doctrine. It's written by a guy named John Thomas. Now, John Thomas, I don't line up with him 100% theologically on a lot of his areas. And I don't even line up 100% with him on here. But I think what he does well is he takes the words of Scripture and he tries to kind of say, well, what would that actually be like if we were to understand that part of hell? And so I want to explain that to you because, and check this out. This is his opening comment. That hideous doctrine of hell is fading. How often have you even thought of it in the past month, for instance? Does it make a difference in your concern for others or your witness? Is it a constant and proper burden? Most believers would have to say no, and I could be in that too. Most believers would have to say no. We kind of, which I think is appropriate, we take more of a tactic of see how Jesus can help your life in the here and now. But we don't talk a lot about you don't want to go to hell. And why people go to hell. I mean, that's even a whole nother conversation. Like, why would God do that? Why would he do that? So check this out. Our Lord's own words on the subject are unnerving. In Luke 16, he tells us of a rich man who died and went to Hades. And from that story and a few other revelatory facts, we can infer several characteristics of hell. First, and I'm not going to go through them all, I'm just going to give you a few. First, it's a great place of physical pain. The rich man said in Luke 16:24, I am in an agony in this flame. Now, we all have experienced pain, right? You've all experienced pain. And I think God allows us, since the fall of mankind, to experience pain as almost like a future sight of a future taste of hell. I don't know. That's just Scott's thoughts on it, all right? But our pain is fleeting, isn't it? We've all experienced it to some degree. So it's a great deal of physical pain. Next is there will be weeping, and even in some passages, wailing. It even talks about gnashing of teeth. I'm not going to go into all that. I'm just going to focus on weeping. That's in Luke 13:28. And check this out. It says, remember how you were moved with compassion to want to protect and restore that person, a person who wailed. Have you ever heard and watched someone wail or weep? I had a brother who died of suicide at 30, and I watched my dad wail and weep over his death. I was 27 at the time. And I've never felt worse in this life than watching my dad wail and weep over the suicide of his son. I mean, just wailing in pain. All I wanted to do was help him. The Lord wants us to know and consider what an upsetting experience it is for the person in hell. These are his words. Hell also has two other aspects to it. Rarely considered, actually, when we think of hell, which are both curious and frightening. On earth, we take for granted two physical properties that keep us physically, mentally, and emotionally stable. All right, check this out. Two physical properties that keep us physically, mentally, and emotionally stable. The first is light, and the second is solid, fixed surfaces. Oddly, these two dependables will not accommodate those in hell. Hell is a place of darkness, Matthew 8:12. Imagine the person who's just entered hell. Maybe it's a neighbor, a relative, a coworker, a friend of yours. And after a roar of physical pain blasts him, he spends his first moments wailing and gnashing his teeth. But after a season, he grows accustomed to the pain. Not that it's become more tolerable, but his capacity for it is enlarged to comprehend it, yet he's not consumed by it. Though he hurts, he is now able to think, and he instinctively looks around about him. But as he looks, he sees only blackness. In his past life, he learned that if he looked long enough, a glow of life somewhere would yield definition to his surroundings. So he obviously tries to adjust his eyes, but they never do. And then moving forward here, it says that hell is a bottomless pit. Revelations 20, verse 1 and 2. However, the new occupant is slow to learn this. These are his words again. In growing panic, he kicks his feet and waves his arms. He stretches and he lunges, but he finds nothing. After more feverish tries, he pauses from exhaustion, suspended in black. It's a terrible thing. And then he just begins to weep and sob through the darkness. As time passes, and who knows how many years that is, he begins to do what the rich man did in Jesus' story. He starts to think. His first thoughts are of hope. You see, he still thinks he's on earth, where he kept himself alive with hope, just like you do. When things got bad, he always found a way out. Don't you always find a way out when things get bad? If he felt pain, he took medicine, right? I had a really bad headache yesterday. I took Advil. It went away. If he was hungry, he ate food. If he lost love, there was actually more love to be found. If that girl didn't go on a date with him, he'd ask another one. We got to bring some laughter in here occasionally, okay? This is a hard topic, I understand. So he casts about in his mind for a plan to apply, and I'm almost done, his hope, to apply hope building in his chest. And of course, he thinks, Jesus, the God of love, can get me out of this. So he cries out with a surge, Jesus, you were right. Help me. Get me out of this. He waits, breathing hard with desperation. The sound of his voice slips into the darkness and is lost. He tries again. I believe, Jesus, I believe now. Save me from this. Again, the darkness smothers his words. Our sinner is not unique. Everyone in hell believes. Now, that's all I'm going to read from that because it's hard. You guys doing okay? If you're not, that's okay. I want to show you a couple pictures in your day a little bit here. And I'm hoping this gives you some motivation. I want to show you some pictures of, by the grace and goodness of God, some dear friends of mine who will not be going to this place of hell. Here's a picture of one of our baptisms we did last spring. You know, here's one of the families in there. This whole family, I baptized them. She's 11 or 12. Married them off. They're all believers now. I'm actually meeting with him in a couple of days. They're starting to grow, coming out of a life of just darkness and despair. Keep it going forward. This is a guy, Gautam. He's from India, moved to the States about 3.5 years ago, rejected Hinduism at age 17 and became an atheist and a very activism. He was active in his atheism online. And then through a series of long story, over a 3-year period, he began to engage Christians, and they began to pray for him, and they began to help him through his issues with God and the Bible. And he ran into a guy. None of that worked, by the way. But he ran into a guy after moving to Reno on the city bus who shared the gospel with him and how to receive Christ. Never saw that guy again. Went home and did that. And then Googled church, found my church, came the next day, and we were actually given a class on baptism, and I met with him, we baptized him. And now look at this is him. He's setting up. He comes every single Sunday morning at 7:30 and sets up our sound. He's actually going back to India for the first time this Saturday for 3 weeks, and he's so excited and nervous to meet his family and tell them about his new faith. So keep it going. This guy here, Jeff, he was in there as a father. His wife was raised in shamanism, still not a believer, but she comes with him and she's working through. Keep it rolling. This is the first guy we ever led to the Lord in Reno. His name's Donnie. He's 45 now. That's not his baby. That's somebody else's baby. And Donnie's still struggling, but Donnie's on a trajectory up. This is a guy who's just had a horrible life, spent a lot of time with drugs and alcohol. He's been sober for a while and really found Jesus. And we baptized him in the Truckee River right in the middle of town. And it was great. Let's see if there's any other ones. And then this was just a couple weeks ago. This is a father of 2 girls, 28 years old. This is Tiffany. She's 20. She plays guitar and sings in our band now. And this is Kayla. Grew up in San Jose. Met one of the ladies at our church through a walking women's group. Women Walking on Wednesdays group. So they slowly started sharing with her, inviting her to things. She grew up in a Buddhist family. She's Vietnamese, and so she had a lot to work through. She heard the gospel and really liked it. She's like, hey, I'm 80% on board, but I come from a Buddhist family. I need to be sure on this, you know? And she also was like, wait. She's starting to understand that, like, God's view on LGBTQ and God's view on, like, her smoking marijuana and God's view on this and all these different things. And just, like, it's amazing to watch someone just go from, like, a totally different perspective to starting to embrace slowly, and the seeds of faith start to take root and grow in her. Those 3 individuals will not be in hell. Is there any more? Oh, that's Kayla again. This is Joseph. His wife is the one that helped lead her to the Lord, my wife and his wife. But he actually was the first one to invite her to church, and she came because of him. So I thought that's kind of a cool picture. He's our bass player too. It's pretty amazing. I actually tell my team, I don't think there's any more, are there? No. I actually tell my team, I say, look, this isn't totally true, but this is true. If all Pathfinder Church did was save one person from hell, I think I could die happy. I think I can die happy. Now, there's a lot more to becoming a Christian than avoiding hell, but we don't think about this that much. So just realize this. Every single day, almost 200,000 people are dying in this world. Actually, you can look it up and see what the modern number is now. Might even be more. But at one point, it was about 200,000 a day die. Every day, someone's dying around you. I used to work hospice. Sorry, I'm a downer, aren't I? You guys are like, we're young. We're never going to die. I used to work hospice, and I saw where everybody was dying in my city, in all the homes. And I lived in death. I lived in a house of mourning for 8 years. And it was so good for me to know that death is coming. What is it? What does it say? Okay, 150. So I was off by 50,000, you know. So give or take. So there's another thing I want to do for you. And this goes to our availability part of this, all right? And we're going to watch a video, right? And here, I'm going to set this up for you. Okay, this a video. There's a couple things you need to be aware of. First of all, it's going to show we're all adults here, okay? It's a very helpful video, but it's going to have the outline of nude women in drawing, okay? It's quick. It's okay. It's appropriate. Kind of. I just want you to be warned so you're not like, oh, why didn't he tell me? You know? Well, I'm telling you. So just know it plays a role. The second thing is this video has a lot of different themes to it, all right? You might be thinking, well, that's not me because I don't do this or I don't do that or I don't do that or I don't play this video game or I don't watch that or I don't do that. The point of this video is how our enemy, well, I'll let you watch the video. Let's watch the video.
He'll do great things, that boy. That's what the village people said about him. Strong, coordinated, talented, smart and charming, the young man felt as though he could become anything he wanted. He stood tall with his shoulders back, and his blue eyes spoke of a steady self-confidence held deep within him. His body was strong, built tough through hours of intensive sword training. After endless hours of sword practice, he began to stroll through the village, back to his home. A number of girls waved to him as he walked by, and he politely waved back. Upon arriving home, he began sharpening his swords, ready for training the next day. Suddenly, a spirit appeared behind him, calling his name. The young man spun around, ready to attack, only to find an incredibly plain-looking spirit floating harmlessly in the center of his room. Neither male nor female, the spirit held an entirely blank expression, neither happy nor sad, as though there was no emotion inside of it whatsoever. The spirit spoke, "Jean of Furthershaw, I am the spirit of seeing." The young man stood facing the spirit confrontationally. "What do you want?" he said, drawing his sword. The spirit remained completely unafraid. "Only to show you my powers. I can show you anything you can possibly imagine, for I am the spirit of seeing," the spirit replied plainly. The young man observed the spirit carefully. It continued to float passively in the air and seemed to pose no threat. "You can show me anything, huh? Show me the stables of Furthershaw," the young man said curiously. The spirit blew a puff of smoke, and inside the smoke, the stables could be seen clearly. The image of the stables hung in the air for several minutes before disappearing. The young man smiled. "How interesting," he thought to himself. Another idea immediately came to his mind. "Show me the most beautiful girl in the world," he suggested, with a smirk on his face. Without a word, the spirit blew another puff of smoke, and in it appeared the most beautiful girl the young man had ever seen. Her long, dark hair lay delicately over her pretty head. She had big, piercing brown eyes, a delicate nose, and plump lips. One hand lay perfectly on the hips of her gorgeous, hourglass figure. The young man's pupils dilated as he stared at the girl in wonder for a full 5 minutes. Remembering where he was, he cleared his throat and composed himself once again. While he felt slightly embarrassed, the spirit maintained an empty gaze, seemingly unaffected by the young man's embarrassing display. Another idea entered the young man's mind. "Show me a great warrior," he commanded. as usual, the spirit blew yet another puff of smoke with an image of exactly what the young man had asked for. The perfect warrior stood looking into the distance, his body toned and muscular, with a stern expression on his face. The young man marveled at this great warrior, pledging to himself that he too would one day be a great warrior just like this man. The young man had had enough. "You may now leave, spirit. I've seen enough," he said, dismissively, as he went back to sharpening his swords. The spirit of seeing spoke without emotion. "I shall remain here, in the corner of your room, ready to show you my powers on your command." The young man shrugged his shoulders in acceptance. The spirit didn't seem to mean him any harm. As the weeks went by, the young man became accustomed to the spirit in his room. He used it to see the weather of the day, to see what his friends were doing, and he even started looking at beautiful girls with their clothing removed. After all, the spirit of seeing would show him anything he wanted. The weeks turned into months. He started leaving his sword training an hour early, and then 2 hours early, and then 3. For the spirit of seeing was far more stimulating than dull, repetitive sword training. The girls in the village waved, but the young man stopped waving back. They were plain, he said to himself. One day, he would find a girl as beautiful as the ones he watched through the spirit, he thought. He began using the spirit to watch great battles. He cheered aloud as his favorite hero turned the tide of the skirmish at the very last minute, watching with eagerness, thinking that one day soon he would lead his own army into battle. He thought of these battles while he practiced his sword work. He even began reciting lines he had heard his favorite hero speak as he swung. And he would leave training after just a few hours to rush home and watch a great battle. Not before seeing more beautiful naked girls, of course. A year passed, and the girls in the village had stopped waving. Some had wedded a husband. Most could be heard screaming the name of another boy in the village from the archery range each evening. Apparently he was skilled with a bow. The young man cursed and muttered under his breath, something about real warriors not attacking from afar. He now trained only for a few short hours, and some days he would skip training altogether. He would walk at a quick pace through the village to get home, uninterested in exchanging pleasantries with the village folk. He had begun using the spirit to watch a number of beautiful naked women perform sexual acts on one another. It seemed now that a single naked woman was no longer interesting. His admiration for his favorite hero had turned into jealousy. He would watch the hero defeat enemy after enemy, the gap between himself and the hero seeming to loom ever larger. He could no longer run much of a distance. His shield felt heavy. His sword skills no longer matched other warriors of his own age. Several more years passed. The young man had given up on becoming a hero. Although he would still rewatch his favorite battles through the spirit from time to time, still unmarried, he had become deeply frustrated and sad. His sword lay quietly in the corner of the room, collecting dust. On the night of his 30th birthday, the man, nearing the end of his youth, sat alone in his room, feeling worse than he had ever felt. The clock struck 12. Suddenly, the spirit of seeing began to laugh. The man was startled. The spirit had never laughed before. In fact, it had never shown any emotion whatsoever. He looked up at the spirit, who caught his gaze. Slowly, the spirit of seeing grew a wide smile. For the first time in 10 years, the spirit spoke. "My work here is done," it said in a deep voice. "What are you talking about, spirit?" the man spoke, fearfully. The spirit laughed again. "I shall reveal what I have kept secret for the past 10 years. I am the ultimate concentration of evil. I am the root of all the darkness in this world. I am the devil himself," the spirit spoke pridefully. The man became terrified, his mouth wide open and speechless. "A demon will attack this village tonight. A prophecy foretold that you were the one destined to defeat it. But it is I that has defeated you. And now The souls of this village are mine, the Spirit spoke with a tone of utter glee. Why wait 10 long years? The man asked in a shaky voice. Why not fight me face to face the first time we met? The Spirit let out another laugh. If I had fought you face to face, you would have conquered me, but I am cunning, and that slow drip of poison given to you through the means of endless fantasy has rendered you too weak to fight. And now, this village is mine. The man could do nothing other than slowly sit down. A deep, dark pain settled inside his stomach, one that he knew would never go away. Only the devil himself could inflict the deep, tormenting, inner anguish he felt pulsing through his mind. The torture in his mind was too much to bear. He needed something to quell the pain. Can I see those beautiful girls just one more time? A wide grin grew across the devil's face. Always.
You can cut it. My point in showing that to you is not to get on a tangent on social media or video games or movies or TV or whatever else you spend your time reading books. My point of showing that to you is you have a choice to make. You're going to decide what to spend your days doing. And there's a real option that you will waste your life. So what are you going to do? And what I want to encourage you to do is really think through, where am I struggling? Am I struggling in the realm of motivation? And trying to identify and work out with someone you know that problem? Or am I struggling in the area with being available? Like this boy, he neglected all his training and everything that would have prepared him to be the person to defeat that demon. He was unavailable because of a slow drip of poison throughout his life of how he spent his days. And you're all going to be presented with poisons that seem like medicine. And they're going to seem satisfying, and they're going to seem right, and our world's going to say, yes, this is what you do. And you may end up like that boy. Now, the good news for us in Jesus Christ, compared to the story, is guess what? You can restart at any point. That boy could restart. He's not a boy. He's a man at 30. He's a man at 20. He's a man at 19. He's a man at 18. And I want to ask you, you may also be a person here who's like, all right, I've had enough. I've had enough like I'm leaving. I've heard enough. I've learned enough. I think I'm at a point where I'm kind of ready to take the leap and start this journey with Jesus Christ. I'm ready to do it. You've come to a place where you understand your rebellion and your brokenness. You get that you've denied God and you kind of live life your own way, and that's called sin. You also have a simple faith. It's a simple faith where you're like, I'm pretty sure the God of the Bible is real, and Jesus is my way out of this brokenness. Jesus lived the perfect life because I couldn't. He died on the cross to pay for my sin to God, and he rose from the dead to show that I could have new life and that God accepted it. And then you're ready to yield your life to him as Lord. At least on a scale of 0 to 10, you're at a 1. Like every part of your life, you're like, all right, God, I'm ready to give you every part of my life on a 1 and then help you grow it to a 2. And that's really all it takes, is to start walking with Jesus. You start with Jesus and you let him clean up your life. You don't go clean up your life. One of the guys in the last picture I showed you of the 3 getting baptized, he was the dad, 28. He wanted to take care of some stuff before he committed his life to Christ. And I was like, you don't have to. He did anyways. But, he learned later that he didn't have to. But I want to lead you. I want you all to bow your heads. Everybody bow your heads. And if you're at this place, I'm going to actually lead you, and it's actually up here on the screen, and I'll turn my back, so if you want to look up at it, you can. This is a simple prayer that you say with a very simple faith that you can start this journey with God, and this is the beginning. It's not the prayer itself. It's not magical words. This prayer represents a state of your heart, a place where your heart actually is. If your heart's ready to do what I just said, just agree with God in this prayer. Talk to him. Just say, pretty sure you're out there, and say, Lord, in your own head, say, Lord, I admit that I have done wrong things and am a sinner. Thank you that you've died to take away all my sins. Please forgive me. I receive your forgiveness now. And I declare that I want to live for you for the rest of my life. Come in and fill my life with your Holy Spirit. I now depend completely on you. Amen. You can raise your heads. If you prayed that tonight, you can write it on your card. There's a place that says, if I decided to, I don't know exactly what it says, but start a relationship with Jesus or receive Christ. Or better, and make sure your name and phone number's on there so your leaders can get in contact with you. Or better yet, go tell somebody. Tell a leader here. Tell me and I'll drag you to a leader in a nice way. But for the rest, for everybody else, I want to put back up on the screen these 5 reasons. And what I want you to do, these are the reasons why sharing the gospel might be hard. This is kind of your motivailability reasons for where you're struggling. And I want you to think through just everything you've heard tonight and what we've talked about. And I want you to take a moment and on that connect card or whatever that, what's it called? It's called the something card. And yeah, and Jesse will go over it later more formally, but somewhere on that, maybe there's a section there where it says your top takeaways. I want you to actually write on there, like where you struggle. And you might actually need to write like, hey, I could use some help in learning how to share the gospel or share my faith or start spiritual conversations or actually getting around people and learning how to at least just be their friend and support them so that I'm available for those spiritual conversations. Or maybe you just need to start praying for people. Or I really need some help with this rejection thing. I do not want to be told no. And it is stopping me in my tracks, and I am afraid, but I don't want to be. So help. Or I've tried. I've actually gone out there. I got my little microphone, and I'm out on Main Street out here, and there's a guy in Reno that does this. Everybody's going to the casinos, and he's like, you're all going to hell, And I'm like, and he actually says some really good things sometimes, and I'm like, he's not wrong. I just don't know if anybody's going to listen to him, Maybe. I'm going to choose a different tactic. But maybe you've tried that, and you're like, nobody's listening. Well, maybe you just need some help. Maybe you got the gusto, you got the courage. You just might need to learn how to read a little bit the situation before you act. Or maybe you just would like to process, I don't actually even know why I can't do this. And here's the point of this. If you're actually sitting there and you're like, I want to do this, and there's a barrier between me doing this, I want you to actually ask whoever disciples you or get with a leader here and talk about that barrier at some point. So writing that on the card saying, hey, I'd really like to talk with a leader about my barrier, that'll initiate a conversation, or it'll just give a whole lot of work to your leaders. So take a moment to do that, and I'm gonna pray, and then we'll wrap up. So, Lord, thank you for tonight. Thank you that you are both real and present. You are here with us, Lord. You are knocking on the doors of our hearts and wanting us to take one more step with you, Lord. You're maturing us. You're taking us from seeds to fully mature plants throughout our life, Lord. And we're all at different stages. So, Lord, would you help us to grow? Would you give us the nutrition we need? Would you water us well? Would you put us around the right people to help nurture us as well? Because you use people. And we thank you and we love you, and we thank you so much, God, for not giving up on us humans and casting us all into hell, because as your word said, you would be completely right and good and justified in doing so. But you're also merciful and long-suffering and patient. And you want to help. You love us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.